living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
In just 15 years, Americans aged 65 and older will outnumber our children for the first time in our nation's history. Most Americans want to stay in their communities as they grow older, but getting older can create challenges that makes that difficult. Welcome to Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm Sara Medley, your host. Today we'll talk about age-friendly communities. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. We're joined today by Nancy Anderson, Outreach Director for AARP. Nancy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about how most communities are set up today and why housing and public spaces are not necessarily ideal for aging community members. What are the trends?
Well, the majority of our cities and towns were designed around cars being the primary form of travel. And we're currently outliving our ability to drive by an average of 6 to 10 years. And yet, especially in Montana, public transportation hasn't yet filled the gap. Most existing houses and apartments are designed for young, able-bodied adults and don't meet the needs of older residents or people with long or short-term disabilities. Older Montanans are not currently using outdoor spaces and parks the way we'd like to see. People 65 plus comprise more than 20% of the population, but only about 4% of park users. There's obviously a disconnect there.
When we talk about aging in place, what do we mean by that?
Well, aging in place means that you can stay in your current home and community as you get older, even if you face mobility challenges. It means that other affordable community housing options will be available if you do choose to make a local move.
What are some of the barriers that have been identified in communities that would allow aging in place?
Well, currently more than 50% of renters over 65 are rent burdened. There just isn't enough affordable, accessible rental stock available. And public transportation, as I mentioned, is also a big concern. How do you get from place to place if you don't drive? And then take into consideration that most of our existing homes are multi-level. They have stairs at the home entrance, and even if they have a main floor bedroom, typically the laundry is in the basement. All these home attributes make it challenging for a person to age in place in the home or even to purchase an appropriate lifelong home.
According to AARP, about 8 in 10 folks want to remain in their homes. Do you think that's really a realistic figure and goal?
Well, I hope we can get there, Sarah, but it's going to take some concentrated effort. Many people will likely need to make some short or long-term adaptations to their existing homes. That's why we offer an online workshop entitled Home Fit and a companion publication. The publication and presentation were created to help individuals and families learn how they can make their current or future residents age-friendly so they continue to live independently despite changing abilities or evolving needs. You can find information about registering for our upcoming Home Fit virtual workshops on our website at aarp.org/mt. But I am encouraged to see that many home developers in Montana are beginning to include one-level, universally designed homes in new housing developments. And that's a major step forward and provides us with a brighter future. Even if these homes are purchased by younger families, we're all aging and more of us will be looking for universal design features in our forever homes each year.
Let's talk about AARP's Livable Communities Initiative. What is it and how did it get started?
Yeah, livable communities are great places for people of all ages. A livable community is one where people of all ages and abilities can live and thrive comfortably and safely. 1 in 3 Americans is age 50 or older. By 2030, 1 out of every 5 people in the US will be 65 or older. As you stated in your opener, for the first time ever, we'll have more people 65 plus than children in our country. And cities and towns need to prepare for that aging population. We need to make sure our local governments and communities are putting plans and policies in place. And you can find more information about the initiative on our website at aarp.org/livable.
What makes a community livable?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. It's well-lit streets that are friendly to pedestrians and bicyclists as well as cars. Crossing signals that give a new mom time to cross with her baby stroller and toddler in tow, as well as an older adult with a walker or a wheelchair. Connected neighborhoods with adequate, affordable public transportation for those that don't or choose not to drive. Parks with walkable paths, accessible play equipment, benches, and adequate lighting. Public buildings that are accessible, and the ability to connect socially and civically to be able to volunteer or work for pay. Cities and towns that keep their citizens informed regardless of how they consume information, and access to affordable health care and grocery stores. There are many factors that comprise a livable community, and they are valued by older and younger people alike.
So we've got just under a minute left, Nancy. How does a community join the network of age-friendly communities? What's typically involved?
Well, there's no cost to join the network, and the effort is truly a partnership between the elected officials and local residents. The community, for example, in Helena, we have an aging work group, which is comprised of people from all sectors of the community. And once we do education and outreach, then the government entity will make application and submit an application.
Nancy, that is just terrific information. So we need to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk to someone who actually made a community happen. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. Nancy Anderson from AARP is still with us, and joining us also is Dawn Redfoot, who helped create an age-friendly community in Red Lodge, which is in Carbon County, Montana. So welcome, Dawn. We're delighted to have you join Nancy and me.
Thank you, Sarah.
So Nancy, before we talk to Dawn, how was Red Lodge selected for this network?
Well, a community is not selected for the network. I guess you could say they self-select simply by making the commitment to work on age-friendly issues and submitting an application. The network is really a volunteer membership program. And remember, there's no cost for joining the network.
Now to you, Dawn. How did you get involved in making Carbon County and Red Lodge an age-friendly community?
Well, what I would say is that we didn't make Red Lodge an age-friendly community. We moved here in 2015 in large part because Red Lodge already had many of the attributes of age-friendliness. We moved here in 2015, my wife and I, along with her parents who were aging and both experiencing dementia. And we lived with them in a house that they had built here in Red Lodge as a retirement home. And so it was a way of enabling them to remain connected to a very special place in their retirement years and a very special place that they had lived in. So we moved here because it was age-friendly in the respect not to make it age-friendly. But shortly after we moved here, the Red Lodge Area Community Foundation Director, Tracy Timmons, called us and asked us to meet with her. My wife had been the general counsel of the Billings Clinic and had worked on health information technology issues in DC. And I had worked for the National Office of AARP on issues related to age friendliness and how do we deal with the challenges of old age and remaining independent in those years. And so when Tracy heard that, she recruited us to join with them in an initiative they had already started to look at aging issues in Carbon County. So that's how our relationship started. And with that, I brought some information about AARP's Age-Friendly Community Initiative. Some of my colleagues had been running that program. And so I was intimately aware of that and said, this is a perfect match in terms of how do we structure our discussion, how do we use the tools that are already available through AARP and the World Health Organization to look at domains of what makes a community age-friendly, and how do we use that then to structure some actual responses and actions that we could take here in Carbon County to address the needs of the older population. Carbon County, as it turns out, is the average age is now 50, and over a quarter of the population is over 65. That's about a decade older than Montana, which is itself one of the older states in the country. And so aging is a very present and major issue here.
If I were living in a neighboring county to Carbon County, what would you tell me is the first step I need to do to develop an age-friendly community?
Well, first of all, I think you need to identify the group that can foster that kind of discussion and that kind of exploration. In the case of Carbon County, the Red Lodge Area Community Foundation had already identified aging as a major issue because of work they had done with a VISTA volunteer before we ever arrived here. So they had laid the groundwork for that, and there was a structure there and a group that could carry the ball. But for other counties, that home may be different. It can be volunteer organizations of various sorts, local governments, but finding a locus for that discussion. And then secondly, I think to contact the state office of AARP, which has wonderful tools and staff support for helping to enable those kind of local discussions.
Give us a few examples of some changes you've been able to accomplish, Don, in Red Lodge.
In the course of our discussions, we used the 8 domains of age friendliness that were established by the World Health Organization to structure an interview process and surveyed the older residents of Carbon County through the senior centers here. What we identified, what leapt off the page here at us, was the need for transportation. Nancy already identified transportation as largely an unmet need, in part because of the rural nature of the state. So we pursued that further. We worked with the State Department of Transportation, and we have recently been given grants to purchase 2 vehicles and to subsidize the operations. We hope to have that transportation system then up and running here for Carbon County in the next few months. So that would be our primary accomplishment.
Thank you so much, Don, for your help and insight as we learn more about age-friendly communities. We need to pause for a break, but when we come back, we'll be talking about how we could learn from these community initiatives in our own home. We're going to find out when we come back, so stay tuned. Thank you. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. Nancy Anderson from AARP is still with us. We're going to be talking about adapting healthy community living and age-friendly communities to our home. But before we do that, we're going to go back and talk about community-friendly and age-friendly communities. Nancy, I would imagine that communities in the rural area look very different from urban. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Montana is not only rural, most of our state is considered frontier, which means that we have a low population density, typically long distances to population centers, often a lack of local services, slow or non-existent internet services, and travel that's hindered by weather or road conditions. And first of all, a lack of healthcare providers can make it even harder for people to age in place in these frontier and rural areas. We have a couple that volunteer with us who spent most of their lives in Miles City, and they've recently moved to Billings because they need quick access to healthcare not available in Miles City. So they left their network of friends and community activities at a time in their lives when it can be more difficult to connect in a new community. I think that's sad. In 2019, AARP convened its first ever national gathering about rural livability as it relates to people of all ages and especially older adults. The event was attended by AARP staff, volunteers, community partners, livability practitioners representing a range of specialties and locations. There's a report from that conference that's available, and it's called the AARP Rural Livability Workshop Report. It's by no means an exhaustive examination of the many issues that impact our rural communities, but the data, observations, and examples it contains will inform community influencers, local, state, national officials, policymakers, service providers, advocacy organizations, citizen advocates, and others. You can access that report by emailing Livable at aarp.org with the subject line Rural Report, or contact me at mtaarp@aarp.org.
Nancy, if someone watching wants to make their community an age-friendly community, is there a first step that they could take in doing this?
Yes, and as I've mentioned, our website contains all of the steps for joining the network in a step-by-step guide. So at aarp.org/age-friendly, or they can certainly contact our AARP Montana office and even call us toll-free at 866-295-7278. We're always here to help.
Thank you, Nancy. Now we're going to switch gears and talk about how we can make our home more livable and more age-friendly. So, Nancy, if someone wants to age in place, talk to us about the important factors they need to keep in mind.
Well, aging in place is defined as the ability to live in one's home or community safely, independently, and comfortably, regardless of age, income, or ability. It also incorporates another important term, universal design. And this is a concept for building, designing, or remodeling a home so it's more comfortable, convenient, safer, and easier for people of all generations to use, and especially the elderly. Things as subtle as handrails or as obvious as accessibility ramps are examples of universal design. And also know that professionals such as physical or occupational therapists and certified aging in place specialists are available for information, direction, and assistance.
How does someone evaluate their own home to make sure that it really is safe to age there?
Well, you know, this issue is really close to my heart. I really embrace this, and we have a terrific publication called Home Fit. It's one of the best publications that we offer, and it takes you on a tour of your home, room by room, and points out issues that you might want to consider. You can order a free copy of this Home Fit guide at aarp.org/livable. And if you don't see the guide on the landing page, simply type Home Fit into the search box.
You touched on this, Nancy, but take a deeper dive and talk about some of the features or accessories that really make a home age-friendly.
Well, there are so many important features to consider, but they all focus on accessibility and safety. And we shouldn't wait until we absolutely need a specific feature to get started. We can work towards keeping or making our home age-friendly little by little over time. Grab bars, stair railings, levered door handles, lighted house numbers, and lighting inside the home like night lights, non-slip flooring, and accessibility rules all. Accessible laundry, shower, bathroom, kitchen sinks, work surfaces, and storage. And of course, anytime you remodel or make changes to your home, you should keep age-friendly top of mind, no matter what your age now.
Do you have any advice for people who work or maybe they want to make their business more age-friendly? What could they do?
Businesses can certainly educate themselves and train their employees about being age-friendly. They should also pay extra attention to dealing with the special needs that those suffering from dementia have when they're interacting with people in business. Again, it's all about accessibility, respect, and inclusion. We have great publications, as I mentioned. One called Engaging the Community to Create Community is a specific pub that can help with this and offer great information. Businesses can also find helpful tips about being dementia friendly on the Alzheimer's Association website.
Nancy, the information you imparted to us today is just fantastic. And unfortunately, we are out of time. We thank you so much, and thank you to Don for all the information he shared with us, and to you, our viewers, for staying with us and staying tuned. So to be sure and join us next week, and until then, stay fit, stay well, stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life. Thanks, everyone, and do take care.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health in partnership with AARP Montana. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the Healthy Living for Life logo. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.